Today's episode is for the person who's tired of second guessing every decision, tired of feeling like money is always one surprise away from total chaos.
Because here's what we've learned. Most people don't have a motivation problem, they have a structure problem.
And that's why we're breaking down the ROCS Framework, the same framework I created and use for Monzon Wealth when planning with my clients, because it gives you a simple way to turn money stress into clarity.
ROCS stands for reality, outcome, constraints, and system. And the reason this works is it forces you to stop guessing and start building a plan that can survive real life.
Reality is where you actually are. Outcome is what you actually want. And your constraints are your guardrails of life. And systems is the part everyone wants, the monthly structure that creates progress without needing superhero willpower.
And stay with us because that system section is where people usually feel the biggest relief. Like, oh, I'm not actually broken. My plan just wasn't built right.
We're also going to help you figure out which letter you're stuck in, because the fastest way to get momentum is doing the next right step, not trying to do everything all at once.
So if you ever said, I make decent money, but I still feel stress, or I know what I should do, but I just can't stay consistent. Or maybe even, I don't even know what my goal is anymore.
Well, then stick around because this episode, it's for you.
All right, Chris, hit me with it. Why do most plans collapse, even when the person is smart, motivated, and genuinely trying?
Most often, it's because they're built on assumptions, vague goals, ignored constraints, or just hoping that pure willpower will win the day. And ROCS fixes all four. So let's get into it with the Fi Guys podcast. Let's get started. Have you ever felt like you're doing the right money things, but you still feel behind? Like you've got the budget, you've got the plan, you're trying as hard as you can, but it still feels fragile? Well, that's why today I'm teaching you the ROCS Framework for financial planning. It's a framework that I created in Monzon Wealth because I noticed over a decade of doing this that most people's plan don't fail because of lack of discipline. They fail because they're built on assumptions and willpower instead of clarity and structure. So Dom, I know this is something that you're first getting introduced to too. You said when we looked at the notes, I've never heard of this ROCS thing. And I said, well, you probably never have, and you're probably never going to hear about it again because this is something I created. So before we get into it, I know we've been doing this for about 2 years now on the podcast. We've heard from so many people in our viewer mailbags. What's one thing that you think when you hear someone saying, I feel like I'm doing everything right, but nothing's working? What do you think the first thing that they're missing is?
I think, and I think you might be surprised by this, but I think it's leniency. I think they're too hard on themselves. Oftentimes people want all or nothing. I'm either this is the plan and gun to my head, I'm sticking to it, or I'm not sticking to anything, right? And there's no room for human life, for real life, or, hey, my son broke his leg. We got to go to the hospital, XYZ, right? This hidden expense came up, XYZ, right? I feel like I'm not being fulfilled in my job. I want to quit my job and I want to become a painter, right? These things are oftentimes, to me at least, what I see is like everyone's wound too tight with their plans, and their plans are only, built in like a vacuum, in like a perfect scenario with small leniencies. But in reality, life is, people get fired, divorces happen, kids, they take up new hobbies and they're very expensive, right? So a lot of life is very volatile. And oftentimes we build plans that, well, it just doesn't support the real life. So I know we talked a little bit before the podcast on, is it ROCS or is it, how should I say, is it ROCS? What is this, right? So I'm excited to really get into this strategy that you've created with Monzon Wealth to build a plan for real life, one that's actually battle tested. So I'm very excited for today's episode.
Yeah. And I want to tell you a little bit about why I created ROCS. I used to be a traditional financial advisor where you'd sit there and someone would pay me, well, about $5,000 to do a financial plan. We'd sit there, we look at all their accounts. I'd ask them, hey, what's your goal? And then they'd say like, I want to do this. You're just like, okay, whatever you say, I'm just going to assume is correct. And then we would sit there and I'd get them this really nice binder. We meet 2 times typically. Get charged 5 grand to meet 2 times. And then after that, I'd give them this nice binder and say, here's your life. Like, just do what this thing says to the T and you'll be good to go. Of course, there'd be a lot of questions, a lot of back and forth. But what I'd always find is that people would take that piece of paper or that nice folder, they'd take it home and put it on a shelf and never look at it again. Or they'd come back about a month later, 6 months later, and say, hey, this whole thing doesn't work anymore because I lost my job, because my wife got in a car crash, and this plan didn't change. This plan was completely static. Or it was built on wrong assumptions because I just took them at their word for what their goal was. So that's the reason I created ROCS, something that could be updated as life changes and something that doesn't have to everything go perfect for it to work. So I want to tell you how today's episode is going to work. First, we're going to define ROCS. We're going to break down each letter, and I'm going to help you figure out which step you're in so you can stop spinning and take the next clear action this week, rather than doing what Dom said and waiting for everything to be perfect, everything to line up, and give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. So again, ROCS stands for reality. R stands for reality, where you actually are. O is for outcome, what you actually want. And this is the important part, why that actually matters. C stands for your constraints, what things must be respected. I call this the physics of money, the physics of life. What can we not undo just because we want it or desire it? There are still constraints in life. Doesn't matter how bad I want to fly by flapping my arms. That's not going to start just because I desire it. And S stands for systems. Here at the Fi Guys, we are all about systems. This is how you make progress monthly without having to rely on discipline and willpower. So Dom, before people are introduced to ROCS, and I know this is something you're learning new, what are some common ways you think people try to fix their money stress before they're kind of taught a framework on how to do it?
Probably alcohol. Uh, Probably alcohol. Going after their spouses. That's probably my best guess to fix money stresses. Looking at the statistics on why most marriages fail and having it be money, not a lot of good problem solving going on out there. So we need to throw rocks down the river and make sure everybody in the village gets it. But and I'm only half joking there, to be honest. Um, the most common way I think people try and fix money stress is like, well, hey, we'll just try and make more money, right? We'll get more jobs. I'll get a second job, right? Um, and maybe they oftentimes maybe even look inward, which is good, where it's like, hey, you're spending, again, there it is. My nature. It's like, blame someone else for spending more money, right? So it's all about taking extreme ownership, looking at the budget, having a budget, probably a great start. Having a budget, sticking to that budget, making sure it's a real budget. But why have a budget when you can just listen to the rest of this podcast and figure out everything you need in life, right? So yeah, let's figure out the right way to do it, the best way to do it, the Monzon way to do it. So I'm excited. I'm still excited.
So after doing this for a while, I found that most plans fail for one of four reasons, or a combination of these reasons at different points in someone's stages. The first reason is that their plan was built on assumptions instead of reality. And this is something that we've always started with here at the Fi Guys is, hey, we need to know how much you actually spend. Not rounded, not hoped, I'm pretty positive it's this or that, but what is it in reality? So that's why R stands for reality. It has to be built on the reality, not on your assumptions or what you hope it is. Because we all think that, oh, don't worry, I never lie to myself. The easiest person for us to lie to is ourselves. And when it comes to money, we will lie to ourselves up and down the street in order to ensure that we don't feel concerned.
Do you think that's a way of like self-soothing, or do you think we're just natural born liars?
I think it's a little bit of both, probably. There's a nice part of being slightly delusional. I think we all need to be slightly delusional. You need to wake. I mean, that's what kind of hope is, right? Like, oh yeah, of course this job's going to work out. Of course, if I try harder and people are going to notice me, all these things. Like, you have to have a little bit of delusion in this life to feel like I have some agency, some control. When in reality, there's a lot of things you just don't have control over. The only thing you do have control over is how you choose to react when life happens. So, yeah, it is a bit of delusion. And then it's a lot of just trying to feel like I need to feel better. There's too many things in this world that are going on that I have to focus on. I don't want to also have to focus on this thing, or I'll just hope that it gets better. The second place that I see that that these problems typically fail is that the goals are vague. And there's a reason that I said that you have to understand why this is your goal, because they need to be emotionally anchored. Because I've found too many people that have these vague goals that are emotionally unanchored. So they never survive real life because when things get hard, well, people are going to default to whatever is easiest. And if someone says, "Oh, I want to retire at 55," and you're like, "Why?" I don't know. It's because it sounds good. Well, when life happens and you have to decide, "Hey, am I going to go out with my friends this evening? Am I going to go to this wedding? Am I going to travel? Or am I going to do maybe the more responsible thing and try to invest?" Well, saying, well, I mean, I guess I could retire at 55 or I could do these things. And I'm not saying that either one of those decisions are the right or wrong decisions. They're just different decisions depending on the goal. But if people don't know what the goal is or the goal is vague, well, then the goal is going to lose out to your immediate impulses more often than not.
You said that a goal should be, you know, smart. It should be specific, right? Not vague. And it reminded me of the SMART goals that we were taught in school. The specific, it has to be measurable, achievable. And what was the R? It was
Relevant in time bound.
relevant, yes, and then time bound, obviously. And I always love those. I always love those, but it's not as easy as they made it seem in the workbooks at school. Um, Being specific requires a lot of introspective time with yourself because, like you said, it's like, I want to retire at 55. It's like, why? Why would you want to do that? It's like, yeah, people be doing that, so I'm gonna do that too. Um, and how do you kind of instruct people to find that goal for them when their whole life they've just been going with the tide, going with the crowd?
Yeah, we're going to get into that more, but I'll kind of
Okay.
give you a preview. A lot of it is waking up for a second, realizing that they are just going through the tide, just kind of going through the crowd and living their life for what other people have told them they want to live their life for, and to actually understand, hey, what is it that I want? And I think that's something that even when we talk about those SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound, no one ever asked the question like, but does it have emotional resonance with you? Is this actually a goal that you want to achieve? Yeah, that might be a SMART goal. It might be all these things. We've all had SMART goals, but in reality, we are not these automata that just go through life like robots. We have emotions, and those emotions are what guide our decisions on the day to day. And that's the reason that the goal is one of the most important things, because if it doesn't have emotional resonance, it's not going to survive when real life happens, when things get tough. Because all of our financial plans are built on the assumptions that things aren't going to go wrong. We're not going to have a recession. You are not going to get sick. Your your kid's going to be completely healthy. But then life happens. And maybe sometimes he even will put in like, oh yeah, hey, we can, we're going to even assume that there's going to be a 3% correction or something like that. Instead of getting 10% each year in the market, we'll get 7%. That's how we're going to assume that things are the worst. But we don't talk about what about life?
And why is it important that it has to be a goal that you're emotionally attached to?
A lot of it has to do when you get to the point where you have to make, there's like a nexus moment, right? Of like
Mhm.
where all the decisions converge. And it's either, do I choose to make the decision that feeds the larger goal, or do I choose the decision that does not? If we don't know what our highest order is, what's our highest goal, well, then we're just trying to feed all of these other buckets instead of feeding the big bucket, the pool that we need to fill. I'm not saying that you only can do one thing in life, but you need to make sure that everything that you're doing, or for most, at least majority of the time, if not almost all the time, is going towards feeding this large pool. And everything, all those other buckets that you need to fill is coming with the runoff that you're giving. because too many people, they have all of these competing goals. I want this and this and this and this. And that's fine. That's life. But if you're going through life trying to do all these competing goals, you're never going to be able to achieve anything because you're just doing too many things. And we are humans. And we have to remember that we have constraints in life. And that's where I find actually most people fail. Number three, or why most plans fail, is because they ignore those constraints. They believe I have the ability to do all of it. They ignore that they have a finite amount of time, that their families have needs, that they are humans who only have so much energy, and that they have obligations in life. And then people blame themselves when either their time or their family or their energy or the obligations get in the way. That is the reason that we need to have the emotional resonance, because there are constraints in life. You can have anything you want, but you can't have everything. And that's what makes it so damn hard.
Well, that answers a lot of questions. That also presents a lot of questions as well. But it's almost freeing to know that, like you said, you can have anything that you want, you just can't have everything that you want. It's like, okay, well, what should I pick and choose to dedicate my life to and dedicate my time and energy to? Because, like you said, it is finite, it's not infinite, as much as we might act like it when we doom scroll on social media or just sit and gossip and gab like chickens all day long. But so where should we start? Where should we start? In fact, you know what? Don't even answer that question. I know you. I know you. You got the notes. I know you're exactly where you want us to be. So what's next, Chris?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you the fourth reason that most people fail. And remember, number one was that most things are built on assumptions. Number two is that their goal is vague and emotionally unanchored. Number three is that people completely ignore their constraints in life and just think I can do it all. And number four is that most people confuse the amount of effort and willpower they put in for structure, for systems. So they think if I just push harder, then I'm going to finally figure this out. And that's often leads to burnout. This is where I find this is where I live, is in this place, is in systems for that. If I just try harder, then everything would work out. And if it doesn't work out, it's because I didn't try hard enough. Without building the systems to be able to allow me to make that slow progress. Because too many of us, we hope that if I just try really hard for a little bit of time, if I just sprint really hard, I can run this marathon and it'll be done quickly. There's this old saying, and I know it's a bit vulgar, but I've always thought it was funny, that Warren Buffett said. And it was, you can't make a baby in a month by getting 9 women pregnant.
That's a funny one.
Like
Some things
sometimes,
just take time.
yeah, sometimes things just take time. And that's what the systems do for us. But too many of us, we hope that, oh, our willpower, our desire, our hope is going to be able to push through that, push through the physics of reality. ROCS is a framework that fixes all four without shaming you for where most people fail. Dom, based off the 4 that we just talked about, which one of these, no, only 4. Based off of those 4, which one do you think is hitting you most emotionally hard right now?
4.
Number,
I'm in 4 too. I live in 4. That's like my whole world. It's like, it's like, oh, you have all the skills, you have a decently strong why, you've got people who love you that want to see you succeed, and you want to make sure that you let them know that you succeed before they die. Strong why, you know. Um, I feel like they're built in reality. My goals, they're not vague. I know where I need to. I know how many things I should post. I know how many things I should do. It's 4. Yeah, it's 4 for me. And my breakdown is in 4. When you were saying that, well, yeah, if you just try harder, it should work, right? It's like, yeah, that's literally me. Um, I feel like most of my issue is in number 4. So I'm excited to find a. I'm sorry for the amount of times I've said I'm excited, but when I saw these podcast notes come up, I was giddy. I was literally like, dude, he's got to stop looking me in my soul and being like, let's come up with a podcast notes for this guy right here. But again, I am the listener. I am the role of the listener in this situation. So I can't not be excited about these notes and improving and really finally having a strategy to get past that fourth roadblock because it's not fun staying where we're at. Like, I mean, Chris, you know this, I know this. I want to I want to move on to the next task. I want to keep going. There's a lot of life to live. And like, this is the breakdown. It's like, well, why can't I just push harder? And it's like, well, you have a ceiling, right? This maybe harder isn't what you need to do. Maybe you need to take a few things away for things to move more smoothly. So, um, yeah, no, number 4 is where I kind of break down the most.
Wonderful. And we will certainly get there. So here's the rules of how I made rocks work. And number one is you don't try to do all four at once. So, listener, just because Dom and I are stuck on number 4, that does not mean that that's where you are. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But you need to figure out which step you are currently on so that you know what's the next right action to make. Because if you try moving on beyond the steps and saying, oh, I want to be at 4 because I want to be with Dom and Chris, or I think I'm more at 3 or 2, but in truth, you're still at R, you need to be able to set yourself up in order to make sure that you go to the right place. So we're actually going to work through that and figure out which part of rocks are you stuck in. Because before I teach you the letters, and I know I've already said them before, I want you to be able to locate yourself in the framework because rocks isn't meant to be consumed. It's meant to actually be used. Too many people create these nice frameworks and these nice little systems that are meant to look great on paper, but not actually be applied to real life. These are meant to be applied to real life. So as you listen, you're not trying to master all 4 steps of rocks. You're trying to answer one question. Where am I right now? That's it. And then from there, we can tell you what the next step is. Because too many people get stuck on, I can't do anything. I can't make a step in any direction until I know where that goes. It'd be like going to a movie and being like, oh, I can't watch the movie until I know how it ends. I don't want to read this book until I know how it ends. We don't know how things end, especially in reality. In the movie, yeah, you can go and you can Google it and say how this is going to end. In the book, you can Google it. You can flip to the last page, do whatever it is that you need to do to quell your anxiety. But in reality, that anxiety is always going to be there and it's not going to go away because no one knows what the future holds. So the next thing we have to do is the next right step. So here are the 4 steps of rocks again in plain English. R stands for reality. I don't fully trust my numbers yet. Number 2 is outcome. I don't have a clear target that feels emotionally real to me. C stands for your constraints. I have a goal, but life keeps punching holes in my plan. And then S stands for systems. I know what I should do, but it's not structured enough for me to be able to repeat it monthly without some insane amount of effort. So, Dom, I'm going to ask you in the audience a few questions, and I just want you to answer them honestly. No shame, answer them internally, externally, whatever feels best for you. But number 1, do I know exactly where my money went last month? Simple yes or no. Do I know where my money went last month? Number 2, can I state my goals with a number and a time frame and why it matters to me? Can I state my goals with a number and a time frame and why it matters to me? Number 3, does my plan work even when my life gets messy? Does this plan continue to work even when life's ups and downs happens? Remember, it's just a simple yes or no. And then number 4, do I have a repeatable monthly structure that works on me not having to put in motivation, discipline, or all of my willpower? Do I have a repeatable monthly process or am I just relying on my motivation and willpower? Dom, at which point of those 4 questions did you first say no?
Honestly, the first one. And I want to be honest too. I want to be honest. When you said, "Do I know exactly where my money went last month?" If in my heart, if I was 100% honest, there's money where I don't know where it went last month. Granted, I have a budget, I have, the basics in play, but I know there's a little bit of money that slipped through the cracks. It's like, this went over here, this went over there. It's like, well, why? So if I'm 100% honest, even on the first question, I failed. Well, I don't know if failed is the right term, but I've come to terms like, no, I don't know exactly where every piece of money went last month. So yeah, I mean, out the gate, that's where I was.
Thank you for being honest with that. It's hard for people to admit that because I think most people do something like you did, Dom, where they're like, "Oh no, for me it's systems. It's definitely systems. Like systems are my problem." And that's fine to think that like, "Oh, this is my real issue," but we have to be able to identify the first issue because if we're trying to just move on to the final step, to the final boss, like, "Oh, I don't need to beat any of those bosses. Like I'm just going to go straight for Ganondorf. Like that's what I'm about, son." That might work for you if you're a speedrunner, but like more than likely you're just going to get messed up. So that's the reason that we ask those questions to figure out like where are we in this step. So for you, you're actually in R. You're still in reality. Let's go ahead and figure out what the reality is so that we can build the framework around it. And that doesn't mean that you're like stuck in reality and you have to play the game forever there. Like it might just take, it sounds like it's just gonna be really quick, but we're gonna stop to build off of assumptions. So as we go through each letter, because now we're gonna go a bit deeper into each one of these listeners, I want you to just listen for two things. Number one is the trap that most people fall into is exactly what Dom just fell into there is like, I want to be here. And then the next action I want you to take is, okay, once I know where I am, what actions can I do this week in order to help me move on to the next process, to the next place? And some people might have O done. They might know what their outcome is. They might understand their constraints, but not know the reality. But like, so you can kind of have, you need to have all these pieces in place, but you can kind of move around and that's okay. All right. So now that we know what each of the letters are, let's go ahead and start with reality because everything rests on what is true. There's an old quote from therapy. It's the truth will set you free, but first it's going to piss you off. You're not going to want to look at it because it's going to be uncomfortable because your brain has taken so much time telling you, oh, don't worry about it. You're doing great. You're doing great. You're doing great until you felt that it was true. And then sometimes when people look at the reality of where their money is going or what's going on, it is frustrating. It's angering. It's all of these things. And it is clarifying. It actually shows them the truth rather than the fiction or the illusion that they went ahead and created. Too many of us live in these illusions. So R from ROCS is reality. Reality is visibility. It's not judgment. It's not optimization. It's just seeking what is true. And that means what's coming in, what's going out, what obligations are fixed, what are your fixed expenses, and what spending is leaking, and what areas are you avoiding looking at. So for Dom, where you said, hey, I have a budget. I know what's going on. Everything is going good, but yeah, there was some money that kind of that leaked out. And I don't know what happened to it. And why am I avoiding looking at that? Why do I not want to see the truth? Because if you build your plan on guesses, then you start to get anxious because deep down, you know that it isn't real. And you might tell your financial advisor, you might tell your friend, you might tell whoever, oh, no, I know exactly what's going on. But deep down at your core, there is a part of you that knows, oh man, I'm full of shit. And when life hits the fan and you kind of, for lack of a better term, like you get called and someone's just like, hey, like I'm like, show your hand. And now you're like, oh no. And that's where the systems, that's where everything else falls apart because you believe at your core, somewhere deep down there, that like everything was built on assumptions. And I'm actually pretty scared, but I'm just trying to show confidence. Too many people, the common trap is that they're rounding everything, they're estimating, and they're hoping that it's close enough. Dom, it seems like you're just nodding along with me, like, yeah, you see me.
Yeah, no, it's like, for me at least, it's like on the journey of becoming more financially responsible, it's like you're just like listing. I don't know if you're reading like my history or whatnot, but it's like so funny. It's like, yeah, just rounding things off, like putting it to the side, like, oh gosh, oh no, I'm just like every other poorly financed person. Um, But it cracks me up because it's like once you see the pattern once, once you've lived the pattern once, it's like, oh, you've done that. You've been that person. It's super easy to spot when someone else is doing that. It's like, I know your tricks. It's like when you catch a kid and doing something like a lie. It's like, brother, kid, like I was you once. I know everything that you've done or what you could do or what you're thinking. It's like, stop. I've been there already. Um, and that's what I feel with with this. I'm like, oh man, like, yeah, I did do that once, and I many times, and it's like, oh wow, it's just, I'm seeing the similarities, and it's good to know that my problem, my situation, my past and my future are not unique, and they've already been sought out. They've already been fixed. They've already been it's already happened for someone. So I just need to copy everything that they did and just do it right for myself, I guess.
Yeah, that's the nice part, right? Is like you're not alone in this. And there's a reason that I was able to create this framework. It's because, yeah, I've done the exact same things. There are still times in life that I still do the exact same things. And that's okay. You're going to slip. You're going to look back on past month and be like, oh, I don't know what the hell happened. And that's okay. All you do is there is a point in life where we've talked many times about like our values or what we hope to be, who we strive to be. And there's a reason that that's who you strive to be. You're never actually going to be that person, but it gives you a goal, a place to set to say like, that's my destination. And that destination's ever moving. It's better. Like I just want to be better in these places. You're never going to get to better. You're never going to reach in and be like, all right, I am best. Like I am good. I don't need to do any more. You're always going to continue to work on these things. So there's two actions if you find yourself stuck in reality that I want you to take this week. And we're going to run through action steps this entire time, depending on which section that you're in. For reality, it's pull your last 30 days of real numbers. That means banks, that means cards. If you're someone who maybe you're the kind of person who's like, oh, I take cash out. I take cash out of my bank account so I don't have to think about it because it was cash, so it doesn't count. Or, if I use my debit card, it doesn't count. Or if I use whatever, it doesn't count. It all counts. It all adds up because you know at your heart that it all adds up. Like it. It's not me saying, oh no, the system, it doesn't work. It's because you know it. Because I knew what it was like to lie to myself and to say, no, 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 I know exactly. But in truth, you sit there at night being like, oh man, I don't know where that $500 went. I just went to the gas station. I don't know. Like it's gone. And number two, I want you to identify one category you avoid looking at most. For many people, it's that, oh, I took cash out, so that doesn't count. Or, well, I mean, it was on my credit card, so it's fine. Like, I'll pay it off next month. I don't have to think about that right now. Dom, what do you think about those two actions that someone can take this week?
Simple but difficult is what I would say. Very simple to pull your last 30 days of numbers, bank, credit card. But the emotional roadblock is like, I don't know. I don't know if I can touch those things, man. That's scary. Opening up your bank account, that's scary stuff. I don't want to see it. Right. Um, I was like that. I was like that for a long time where it's like, dude, I just got paid. I know how many hours I worked. I know how many the bill. It's all about. I was rationalizing it. It's like I know how much like the bills are. I know how much like I spend on food. It's like why do I have to check it? I know how much I have. Technically, maybe, um, but it's just fear speaking, and you can't live your life in fear, and you have to get over it. And really, it's not as scary as it seems, right? I used to have these mental tricks where it's like, you know, all right, I'm gonna open up my bank account. I'm like, if I'm negative $1 million in my bank account. Not actually, right? But I would come up with these like mental tricks. I'd be like to get me to just open it at the time, and I'd be like, all right, I'm negative $1 million, $1 billion in my bank account. But anything better than that, that's better. And I'd open it up, and obviously, I'm not negative. I'm not going to open up my Bank of America app and be like, hey, you owe us $1 billion. It's like no, of course, not even. I'm not even in the negative. Like I'm in the positive, right? So it's like, oh, I'm not down $1 million billion, right? So this is great. Awesome. Cool. So that's good, right? You could be down 1 million, but you're not. And it was those weird little mental tricks I had to use in the beginning of getting like starting making money and paying bills and all these different things to actually get me out of it. So when you're saying like, hey, this week's action is the last 30 days, pull that bank statement, pull that credit card statement. It's like, yeah, I know for a lot of people that is very difficult. Very difficult. A lot of mental roadblocks in there. But you can get past them. You can get past them. It's possible. It's very possible. So that's kind of what I thought about these two action steps for the reality part of the podcast.
Yeah. I think one thing that's good to say is like, it's scary at first. Most things are scary at first. I remember when I first started driving, it was scary. It was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be a lot. And now I don't even think about it majority of the time. It's just like, all right, cool. Riding a motorcycle for the first time was terrifying. Driving a stick shift for the first time was terrifying. And now I can do all those things without even thinking about it. So it just takes time. It takes repetition. It takes showing yourself that I can do this and I'm okay. I survived over and over and over again. So I would like people to be able to do a self check-in. Could you actually explain where your money went last month without squinting, without being like, it's about this or that? That's how we make progress. And this is the most important part. I think people, when they hear this reality part, they're like, I don't want to have to do this every day for the rest of my life. I don't want to be able to, Chris say like, how much money did you spend last month? And be able to just spout out a number to each decimal point. And that's not the point of this. When we're doing this financial planning, we're creating the systems right now. So right now, when you're in the systems creating part, yeah, it's important to know your inputs. I'm not saying that you need to know this number for the rest of your life. That's where people get caught up on. If I do this change right now, if I start to get better with finances right now, that means all of my funds gone for the rest of my life. And that's never what this has been about. So now that we have an understanding of what our reality is and what we need to do to gain that reality in case we're still stuck in it and stop to live this life of illusion, you earn the right to choose your outcomes, to say, what is it that I want? Where is it that I'm going towards? Where am I setting the bow of my boat towards? So O in ROCS stands for outcome. Outcome is what you actually want. But more importantly, it's why it matters. And we define it as both a number and a time frame. Just like the SMART goals that Dom talked about. The only thing that's different between this and a SMART goal is, why is this emotionally important to you? Why is this actually important? Because too many people, they come in with these vague goals. I want this, I want that. Well, why? Why do you want that? I don't know. It's because what I want. It's because that's what you're supposed to want, right? But when life happens, when life gets stressful, when things go wrong and you have to decide, do I want this or that? You're going to go for what you actually want. And I don't know what that is, Dom. I don't know what you actually want. What's the thing that we say on literally every podcast? Know thyself. Most people don't know what they actually want. And that's where digging down deep, usually with a person or by meditation or by journal, is figuring out like, oh, this is what I actually want. This is my actual goal. And sometimes that actual goal, that actual outcome you're looking for might piss you off because it's the opposite of what you've been striving for the entire time. Because too many people, they're chasing 10 goals all at once. And when they do that, none of them move. And even worse than that, they're avoiding the one goal that they actually want because they're chasing after these 10 goals that society, their parents, their teachers, their boss placed on them. So before we get into the action steps of what you can do if you're an outcome, Dom, what do you think?
I think I think the goal of like companies nowadays is to keep us distracted. Same with like politics. Like companies and politics are working together to like keep us distracted, right? And I feel like it's the same way with our goals, like you said, right? We have 10 different goals that we want to achieve, right? But the way you really achieve something isn't by focusing on 10 things at once. You focus on one thing at once, right? You focus on one thing and then you move to the next thing, you move to the next thing, you move to the next thing. Um, and that works really well for tasks. But for goals, it's like, man, I there's so much stuff I want to achieve, right? I want to perfect this, cake recipe over here, and I want to build this lavish bookshelf over here, and I want to post these great videos over here, right? And the more you add, the more you take away from everything else. It's not like we're four-dimensional beings can move through time. You know, we only have so much time, and I think that's one of the things that we forget as humans, that if you're going to commit to something, you're taking away from something else. And we need to make sure that we keep that in the forefront of our mind, because you have to ask yourself, it's like, hey, like, yeah, you're gonna, in my case, it's like, hey, you're gonna be a better baker because of this, but are you willing to sacrifice, time with your family over here? Are you willing to sacrifice time over here and over there, right? Is it worth it? And I think that's a conversation you have to have with yourself, an honest conversation you have to have with yourself. But it's tough. It's tough, but it's important to, if you really want to be major successful, I feel like you have to focus on one or two goals at a time, and then just like call it done, and then work on those first. Because I don't know. I know you have like your to-do list, the what 7 things or what 9 things, or I know you have a short to-do list of a certain amount. Do you find multitasking is the way to go, especially in regards to goals? Have you ever been
No,
successful with that? No.
no. I mean,
I
because then it's like you're kind of, it's be like being put in a pen, and then
yeah.
there's like 6 cats. And you're like, all right, catch all these cats, go, and all the cats scatter.
Yeah.
You're just like, and now you're just running in circles trying to catch all of them, rather than being, I'm going to get that red one, then I'm going to get that yellow one, then I'm going to get that black one. If you're trying to catch all of them simultaneously, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Dom, you've been probably one of the most consistent people that I know when it comes to content creation. What do you think the difference is between a goal that sticks and a goal that fades?
It's just not a, I feel like this answer is going to be a little bit vague, but it's all about how bad do you want it? I really want to be great at making content. And to be honest, that's like the theme of it. Like, I want to be great at making content. But the real answer is I love looking back on my videos like years back, meaning like, oh, that's a memory. I forgot about that memory. And then I watched this video and I'm like, wow, this is an awesome video. I love this. And for me, my mind it's as good as it can be, right? And I'm always trying to improve it. But my memory sometimes, as humans, I mean, we forget certain moments. It's weird seeing yourself on a video and being like, that's me, but I have no idea what I'm about to say next. And, I don't know what this is, right? But as far as like being consistent, part of it is social pressure, oddly enough. Part of it is a desire to be better. And like you said, it's a commitment. And I said I'm going to do XYZ. And this is something I still struggle with, right? This is something that I'm not perfect on in any stretch, right? But doing what you say and saying and doing what you say and saying what you do are basically everything that I'm trying to be better at. And there's just so many levels to it. Once you like start to dip your toe in, it's like, oh wow, it's like I mean, Chris, you've been consistent with the gym, right? You've been consistent with learning and exploring new areas and throwing yourself in the fire every single day and really just reinventing yourself time and time again. You're like that jellyfish. You're like jellyfish at the end. It's like, guess what? Poof, reinvention. I'm back to new. Um, so I, I don't know if it's like something, I don't think it's something you're born with. I want to make that clear. I don't think it's something you're born with. I think it's something that you fall in love with. I mean, you've fallen in love with learning, right? Even when learning was difficult for you and you were hated on for how you learned, but you found a way to love it. And now you've been given this gift of lifelong love of learning. And I think for all of us, we come into our path differently. And I think that's what sucks about life a little bit, right? If there was just like, how do you fall in love with learning? Chris is like, oh, okay, so you grow up this way and your teachers say this and you go through this, right? The fall and then the rise, and then you love learning. It's like, oh, cool. Yeah, let me just be a fifth grader again. It's like, yeah, okay. There's just not one way to fall in love with learning or fall in love with what you do and become who you want to become. And I think that's what's so exciting about life is that we all have to chart our own path forward. And I kind of want to turn it back to you, Chris, but how do you even embark on a new journey? For a lot of people listening to this episode for this podcast, this is scary. This is kind of a fearful topic. They chose this episode out of fear. It's like, hey, I'm scared right now in my finances and I'm scared with my goals. I feel like I'm not where I'm supposed to be, right? We hear that a lot on the viewer mailbag episodes. But where do they start? I mean, they've already clicked the video. How do you start to develop, you know, who you are and what you want out of life? Because I know a lot of people, even in their older age, it's like, hey, what do you want to do before you die? And it's like, I don't really know. And do you find that older people know what they want more, or is it everybody just no, no?
Yeah. Typically, I mean, as they get closer to death than they do. I think that the finality of life kind of puts into context what's actually important to you and what like you really, really actually wanted. I think outcome is probably one of the hardest things to really figure out. Like the reality, like what is it? Like, yeah, it's scary, but like, there is a quote unquote right answer to it. With the outcome, there really isn't. And we've talked about this. I think we talked about it on last podcast. It's like, what are your values? And I think too many people, when they go through it, and they're like, well, what is it that I actually want? Like, what is it that I'm trying to discover? What is the goals? Maybe that might even be the wrong question. It's like, maybe you just have to uncover it. Maybe the goal is not something that was put on you or something you had to learn to love, to want. Maybe the goal was something that was already in you from the get go. Maybe you knew when you were a kid without constraints, without all these issues, without baggage of the world, this is my goal. This is what I want in life. I think when you meet a kid, like I really like kids. I think kids are like they're so cool. Like kids are so funny and they're awesome, right?
Yeah.
But when you ask them like, what is it that you want out of life? They're just like, oh no, they're just this. Like this is cool. Like I just want to keep doing this. And maybe that's the goal. Like just to be happy with what is rather than I can finally be happy when A, B, or C. Like when I reach this outcome, then I can be good. Maybe the goal of the outcome could just be to be like happy, to be with it, to just be here, be present. Maybe that's like the highest level of transcendence that we can get to is just being like, yeah, I mean, I'm going to work with my reality. I'm going to work with the outcome. I'm going to work with the constraints. I'm just going to, I'm just going to get to wherever it goes, and wherever it goes, it's all going to work out and I'm going to be happy with it. And maybe if that's the highest level of transcendence and we can make it there, wonderful. But I don't think I'm anywhere close to that. And I don't think majority of our listeners are. So I think we need a goal to go after. And I think when you're trying to look for that goal, again, I look towards the end and say, like, what is it that I want to look back on my life on and say, these things are good. The reason I ask you about the content creation, Dom, is because you said, like, I want to have those memories. I love seeing myself grow. I love being able to look back on those things. That's a value of yours. And now that's something that you get to take and turn it into your outcome. But if your value, and too many people do this, they're like, oh, my goal, my outcome is that I want to retire at 55. It's like, what do you want to retire from? Well, I want to retire from the thing that I love. I want to retire from having to do content creation and stuff like that. Well, could the outcome maybe change and be like, oh, I want to devote myself to content creation? Okay, then we can change everything to not have to be around what it is that we need to do right now to meet the goal that you thought you wanted. But in reality, it's not the actual goal. It wasn't the actual outcome you wanted.
Sounds like you're describing Jesus. You're speaking so much greatness. Your phone is come alive. It
I
wants to
know.
create a goal. I love it.
Darn
You've
Chat
activated.
GPT.
I love it. I love it. No, it's fun. It's kind of funny. I have obviously when we do the podcast, I have classical music going on in the background, and I had this beautiful piece while you were speaking. I was like, man, I feel like I'm watching this. This is like an edit or something. This is so awesome.
Thank you for joining us on part 1 of the ROCS Financial Framework. Please come back this Friday to hear part 2 of this exciting conversation, and I promise you, you're going to get something out of it. We'll see you there. This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.